Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Property Meetup. We have a topic that I don't know very much about tonight, serviced accommodation, and John Woodman is our main speaker for our fireside chat for this evening. I wanted to start this one by just giving a little overview of who I am and what I do, particularly as I've had a few a few interesting, highs and lows recently as we've tried to complete some purchases, and we've got quite a lot going on in the sales market. So I'm going to start by sharing my screen. King Property is a development firm and a landlord. We have just launched a site in Shirley called Southern House, which hopefully you can see on the screen now. Can you? Which is an interesting time to launch sales onto the market. This was a 6,000 square foot office building that we've converted into 10 apartments that we're just selling with new build warranties and Help to Buy right now. They were due to launch at the beginning of April, which is spectacular timing, and so has been postponed for a few months up until now. So that's just going live right now. We just literally put it live on Friday, and then as of 2 weeks' time, viewings are commencing. So we're very keen that estate agents are up and running again. This is another site we have. This is King's House, which is an 8-unit site. Excuse my internet connection, not quite catching up very well, which already looks considerably better than this old Google image. Both these sites are over 100 years old. This one is from 1893, the other one from 1875. And we've got a few other developments going on. We've just launched a listed building for sale with 4 apartments in there as well, and a couple other development sites on the go. So lots going on, very busy, and we're also kind of at the we're very keenly watching what's happening with the market. So far, there's lots of positive noises about the market, lots of negative noises, lots of people who are talking very confidently, and I don't think really anybody has any idea what's really happening, and it's too soon to tell at the moment. I've seen some encouraging news from some valuers, encouraging for me as someone who has properties to sell, about prices being maintained. Valuers are being, Rix is providing instructions to valuers that mean that they can value similarly to pre-lockdown prices, and they add a COVID-19 get out of jail free clause for themselves, but essentially that gives lenders the opportunity to take the price that they put on the valuation seriously. So that's kind of an interesting development for people who, for me as a developer with a bunch of things to sell in the market at the moment. As ever, I like to provide the opportunity for a few people to give a short little bit of value to help everybody from other arenas outside of John's discussion on serviced accommodation. So first up, I'd like to ask Karen, would you like to say a few words?
Hello. So I'm Karen Murray, and I'm a business coach for solopreneurs. So I really have focused on solopreneurs because, as far as I'm concerned, if you're a solopreneur, you're special, because other business owners have people that do work with them and for them. But as solopreneurs, you really are the Swiss Army knife of all business owners. You are doing it all. And I really admire that. And I also know that it throws up significant challenges, specific challenges for you guys. And so I've started a podcast called the Smart Business Podcast that helps with the specific problems of being a solopreneur, the specific challenges and some of the joys that we get by being in charge of our own destiny completely and not having to rely on other people at all. And this week's episode is how to get lucky in business. Now, not that kind of getting lucky. It's not that kind of podcast, But it is about how sometimes we look at other people and we think, crikey, that opportunity, how did that come their way? And how did they suddenly manage to achieve what they've achieved? And I don't think there's any secret behind it. And so I've unpacked that a little bit in this week's episode, because we really want to be starting to think about planning for better days. Better days are coming. I know it's been a really challenging time for a lot of people, but I truly believe that what marks entrepreneurs out is their endless, sometimes slightly crazy optimism, and their resilience and hard work. And so stay on it. But if you're starting to think that you'd like a little bit of luck in your business, then have a listen to this week's episode. It's literally just been released. My iTunes has just told me that it's there. So yeah, that's me, how to get lucky in business.
Thank you, Karen. Let's keep it family show. Thank you.
Yes.
Well done. Great stuff. Highly recommend Karen's podcast. I'd like to next go to Dan. Would you like to say a few words, Dan?
Yeah, if I manage to unmute myself, Rob. Hello, everybody. Good evening. Some of you I've met before, so I'm Dan Fitzhenry. I have the pleasure, privilege, and sometimes misfortune of having two hats. One of my hats is I'm a local government councillor here in Southampton, and my second hat is business hat, where I acquire companies, partner with companies, and mentor companies to grow. So obviously Karen was talking about the solopreneur element. A lot of the companies I'm focused on have got multiple people and components. So I just wanted to give you a couple of pointers this evening of stuff that I have the pleasure of having lots of conversations with lots of different people. And certainly a few things that have come out in the last couple of weeks since we last saw each other. And there's one guy that, if you don't know him, he's probably worth following and having a read of some of the stuff, is a chap called Ray Dalio, who's the founder and chief investment officer of Bridgewater, which is the largest hedge fund in the world. And right now, in the big picture, as you talked about, Rob, there's a lot of, well, there's almost a division of people saying what is coming is going to be terrible versus those saying, actually, the stock market is running at highs, and that usually is a very good indicator of where the economy is going. And one of Ray's quotes and key focuses is about when we're in our day in, day out job, and specifically in property right now, we tend to lose sight of the big picture. And there are a lot of big picture thinkers right now, and conversations going on that suggest perhaps this isn't quite as bad as we thought it was going to be. And actually, and this is, you know, take what you like and leave the rest. This is an opinion and interpretation. But what I'm seeing from different businesses and different people across the board is there's a huge amount of optimism and creativity and energy out there to drive in business. Yes, there's some challenges, but a lot of those challenges are things that we faced pre-COVID and are not necessarily new challenges. They're just things that we knew were coming that have been sped up. So the job losses, the transitions, the adjustments in the economy are things that should have happened over a 10-year period in the 2020s, that suddenly are all happening in the next, well, have happened and will be expedited over the next 6 to 12 to 18 months. So little words of wisdom, really, which was just perhaps if you're, I try to do this, and Rob's very good at it, which is if you're in one sector, try and lift the bonnet a little bit and look at some others and look at what other people are saying, because there's some really fascinating information and evidence out there right now, which will help you identify where the huge opportunities are coming. And there is huge opportunities, albeit there's some challenges. So thank you, Rob. That was just, hopefully that was helpful, and look forward to, I've also had the pleasure of working with Rob and John, who's talking this evening. So you're in good hands. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dan. For everyone else, I promise we didn't rehearse this, but I couldn't have asked Dan to tee up what I'm about to say next any better. Next up, as you all know, I love podcasts and I love consuming books on audio. So my podcast recommendation for this evening is exactly along the lines that Dan was just talking about, taking inspiration not only from your own industry, but from looking at other industries and the intersection of how your industry crosses over to others, and what you can take from other industries to get out from and bring back. Alongside Karen's podcast, one of my favorite podcasts is from an American radio station, originally radio company called NPR. The podcast is called How I Built This. It's truly incredible, and it's totally professional in terms of the sort of production quality. They interview the chap who does it's called Guy Raz. They interview successful entrepreneurs, and it's a sort of 45-minute, 60-minute journey story from origin to success, and sometimes sort of listing on the stock market or sale to larger corporation. I'm eternally inspired by the thousands of different stories. If you like business biographies and business autobiographies, then this is a really good audio version of that. So that was how I built this, with the interviewer Guy Raz, R-A-Z, and it's from NPR. Really good stuff there. Okay, cool. That's the podcast. So next up, we have our main speaker for this evening. So John Woodman runs a successful serviced accommodation business. I will let him introduce himself, because I'm sure he'll do that far better than me. As some of you know, serviced accommodation isn't something that is at the forefront of my business. We don't do any serviced accommodation. It's not something I know a tremendous amount about. I know there's a lot of hype out there about serviced accommodation, and there has been for a number of years. I think it's fair to say it's one of the hot topics certainly over the last sort of 2 years or so. I'm sure John will enlighten us as more than this. There have been lots of courses around and lots of people talking about doing service accommodation. John is one of the people who is making a really good success of it and creating a really solid business. So I'm delighted to have John join us. John, would you care to first off start by just saying hello and telling us who you are and a little bit about your business today, and then we'll jump back and get back to the beginning.
So John Woodman, nice to see everyone, a few familiar faces. Our business today, we run 28, might be 29 service apartments. Some of those are our own, some of those we manage for other people, some we rent, some we actually own. So it's a bit of a mixed bag. Interesting times right now for service accommodation. As you can imagine, middle of March, pretty much every single booking that people had vanished overnight. It was interesting times for the first few weeks, but we managed to pull through. We've done some interesting stuff. I hate the word pivot. We haven't actually pivoted. We just did more of what we were doing anyway. But I can tell you a bit more about that in a bit. We're still here. We survived. We're still growing. We've grown throughout this program. So,
thank you, John. Thank you for the intro. I'm sure you'll have lots more to say about. I've got lots of questions about the current situation and how you're handling it and what you're doing. Could we start from the beginning, if you like? What were you doing before property became such a big part of your life, and what was the initial spark that got you interested, or got you maybe involved rather than interested?
I used to work in the defence industry. I used to work for BAE Systems. I'd worked for them since I was 18, 19. They sponsored me through university, so I was a bit of a lifer. And in fact, I started my first property-related company when I was working for BAE Systems. I've just looked at the folder, which is up on the shelf. It's that one there. April the 27th, 2000, so 20 years ago. It was called Property Shack. And that was going to be an online house selling platform that allowed you to also organise mortgages, had links to all the local solicitors, everything you'd possibly need in one place to buy a house. Not long after we came up with the concept and started playing around, a load of people with a lot more money came along and came out with something called Rightmove and various other bits and things that look like that. So we parked that, literally put it on the shelf. It's still there. Then I went back to my day job, which at the time was underwater weapons, believe it or not. And then I moved into the energy space in the defence market. So I've spent the last 10 years talking to ministries of defence around the world about how poor they are at managing their energy use, and how they just literally hemorrhage cash like it's going out of fashion. So that's been really interesting. That's taken me all over the world. Been to some really interesting places, done some really fun things. But then
What next after coming up with Rightmove before Rightmove did? What was
well, yeah,
what was
we
next
kind of
property wise?
came up with that and then just did nothing for the next 15 years. But we actually we got into property. We'd always thought about getting into property. Had always gone down the route of, we can't do it, we can't afford it, all this kind of stuff. And then Sarah, my other half, was looking to get out of work. Decided it was all a bit too boring. Wasn't enjoying what she was doing. So she had a chat with Bronwyn Burncombs, who some of you will know. Bronwyn said, "Read this book." Sarah came home with the book, gave it to me, said, "John, read this book." So I read Simon Zucchi's Property Magic, and from there we had a few chats with Bronwyn, ended up doing some training with Simon, did Mastermind, and I chose service accommodation as something that I wanted to do rather than any of the other. Most of the others are strategies. I wouldn't call service accommodation a strategy particularly. It's a business. Very much a business as opposed to a particular strategy, and I wanted to build a business, so I went into it with a business head on from day one, with the view that I wanted to build something that I could potentially sell in the future, or have the option to sell if I want to. Most entrepreneurs and people like that always have that intention, but probably never stop working. But I want to be in a position where I can build something that I can sell if I want to going forward. So we've been doing that for the last 3 years. And then I left my day job in April 2018. Sarah's still working. The original plan being that she would leave her job, but she's still working. So.
Through choice, or do you need to grow a little further to get to there?
Through choice. She changed jobs. She actually started a new job 2 weeks before COVID hit. Running, doing ops manager for a hospital. So that's been interesting. Wow. 3 months for her.
So you went full time into property in 2018.
Yeah.
Right? You just say that. Yeah. So and how long before that were you having to juggle the part-time property business alongside the full-time career? Lots of questions.
About a year. So I did it for a year. I actually won a contract from the European Defence Agency in my own for my own consultancy business. So that enabled me to leave the BAE job, knowing that I had some cash behind me that would enable us to get through for a while we grew the property business. And then over that last year, we trebled the number of properties we were looking after. So we quite aggressive growth last year, relatively slow to start with, but then flew last year. And my plan was originally to double again in size this year, but we'll see how that pans out.
So essentially, you went from being an employee to being a contractor.
Yeah.
Through your own sort of contracting company. Was that deliberately a step to get into property?
Technically, I left BAE in 2011, went straight back as a contractor. I had an opportunity that was too good to miss, so I did that. Went back as a contractor, and then the plan had always been to then leave. They decided they wanted to put me back on the payroll. I was okay with that, but that wasn't part of my plan. It became pretty apparent quite quickly that being back on the payroll didn't really suit me. So that just kind of accelerated the move out of the sort of corporate desk job. Now I have a home desk job. So.
And what was the having met Bronwyn and got into the Simon Zucchi PIN community and Mastermind and those things, what was your first investment property, the first one? How did that?
So the first one we came across, so I just contacted loads of went through lots of agents, was getting lots of knockbacks, and then I went through what they called it was on Rightmove. One of the agents, if if you're just a one-man band landlord, you can put properties onto Rightmove through them. But when you try and contact them, it goes straight to the landlord. I messaged him and said, look, this is what I'm looking to do with service accommodation. Can I rent it off you and sublet it? He was like, oh, not quite sure. Let's have a chat. It turned out to be that the apartment this was a 2-bed apartment in Southsea. It turned out that it was right opposite my old school. And when I met him outside, I was like, oh, when I went to that school, that used to be a newsagents. He said, yeah, when I went to that school, it used to be newsagents too. He was 2 years ahead of me in school.
Really?
Yeah, so straight away, we had a connection, we had some rapport, and after that, it was just happy days. So we've still got that one. That's still our original one. And we also managed one for him in that block as well. And then last summer when he was empty, we did some short-term lets in 3 of his other apartments. Yeah, so we work quite well together now. If he's got an empty apartment in the summer that needs filling, there's plenty of contractors who are just looking for a bed to put a head on.
And that first one, so that was rent to rent SA.
Yep.
You were renting it off the landlord and then doing service accommodation.
Yeah, and then we grew from there. So we did two or three more over the next 3 months, working with Dan actually. Dan sourced them for us because obviously I was working full time, didn't have time to go and do that. Dan had some to get some exercise. He went around finding them for. So, 3 in Southampton actually they were. So we had those 4, and then we gradually picked up some other ones that people who were doing service accommodation. They wanted to get their property managed, so we were doing that. And then we picked up some more rent to rents. We've actually got 5 in a block in Portsmouth, which we are gradually buying the apartments one by one. So we've got an agreement from the vendors so we're buying them, and that with a view to eventually ending up with the whole block. But that's a few years down the line.
One owner for the whole block, or different owners?
Yeah. So at the moment we're in the process of purchasing the whole of 1 floor, and there's 2 other floors. So there's 5 apartments on each floor. But at the end of the day, we hope the plan would be to own the whole block, including the 2 commercial units underneath. But they're all owned by different people at the moment, so we're just picking them off as they come up for sale. Except for those first 5, which are owned by 2 guys. So we're just working with those guys to push those sales through.
So if I've got it right now, at this stage, you've got some rent to rent SA, where you're doing like longer term contract, fixed price rent, and then you're doing all the management and you're taking all the risk. Do you have, you have some sort of managed rental SA as well, and then you have some owned properties?
We've done various models. So we've got our own rent to rents. On the management side, we've got ones where other people have done rent to SA, and we're just managing it because they're not local.
Really? Okay. And that fits. The model fits well, does it? Great.
It works. You have to make the properties work quite hard though for everybody to make money out of it.
People do that with rent to rent on HMOs and struggling, where they take on a rent to rent contract and then they try and bring a manager in, and it's really tricky to make it work, I think.
It is. I think it's probably slightly easier where the numbers are a bit bigger to play with.
Right.
But on the management side, we do various models on our management side. So I've got some. So the one that we've got with the guy who we did our first property with in Portsmouth, that's a model where we manage the property completely. I didn't want to guarantee his income.
Right.
So what we did on that was we set a threshold and we said, look, we won't take any management fees up to a certain point, but after that point, we'll take a management fee on everything. So that gave him a bit of comfort. It's not on my books as a rent to rent. That's all I'm taking is a management fee rather than all of the income going through my books. That works quite well for him.
Right, yeah. So from a VAT perspective, it's not the whole rental isn't contributing to your VAT threshold, only the management portion.
Only the management fee.
I like that, yeah.
And then we've got one which is a joint venture, with someone, so he's taken it on as a rent to SA. We are managing it completely, and we split the profits 50-50 at the end of every month. So he's the one that's guaranteeing the rent. I'm managing it, and as long as the property's making money every month, I get a share of the profits. And that's worked out quite well. That's been quite a good model.
It's interesting. I've not heard of people doing it that way before. So it's his guaranteed contract, as you said, and then you split the profit in. Yeah. So he's the one on the hook, not you. And your management fee could essentially be really quite good if you do a good job. Yeah.
Yeah. So in a month where the property makes no money, I don't make any money. But actually, there has been months where we've both done very well out of it. And then the third one is a standard management model where somebody else has got a property and I'm just managing it and taking a fee off the gross booking value. So we've got different models we use with different people depending on what they want to do and what situations they find themselves in. We've just done one. We were managing a couple of properties for someone. She was doing rent to SA. She's decided it's all too difficult. Didn't want to do it anymore. We had some people there that we know they're going to be there for the next 3 or 4 months. I then spoke to the landlord and said, look, this is going to work for you. If you just let me carry on doing it, you're going to get at least 50% more rent than you would be just by renting it out on the open market, just because of the people we've got in there at the moment. So what looked like we were going to lose a couple of properties out of our portfolio, we've now been able to keep them in the portfolio by going straight to the landlord that the person was doing the rent to SA deal through. So,
right. So you started by working with the rent to SA person, managing for them, and then have managed to sort of parlay that into you have a direct relationship with the landlord.
The landlord.
You benefit more and they benefit. Great.
Yeah, absolutely. He's happy. He's been paying the council tax. He's just about to switch it to business rates, so he'll get all of that council tax money back. He'll pay no business rates for next year. There's a lot of advantages for him. So yeah, that's.
And then you have some that you own as well.
We've got a couple that we own, and then we're gradually trying to buy more, but trying to get a service accommodation mortgage is really hard at the moment. It was hard before. It's nigh on impossible right now. Okay. We had a Zoom call with our broker and Paragon on Monday afternoon to talk about what we were trying to do, what the issues that they've got, and I've hopefully got another one with some senior people in Paragon to talk to them and explain to them about the service accommodation market and what it's doing and where it's going and what the opportunity is. Because as far as they're concerned, it's really risky, more risky than a standard buy-to-let mortgage. And I'm saying, well, actually, with a buy-to-let mortgage, your tenants can just stop paying, and you're getting no income for, well, by the time you've tried to evict them, maybe 6 months. I don't have that problem. There's plenty of people around looking for short-term accommodation. I can get income. Generating guests is not a huge problem. So we will always be in a situation where we can get people in the door. We can always pay the mortgage. And the market for service apartments, short-term accommodation is pretty good at the moment. And I expect that to get better as lockdown lifts and more people are allowed to move around. So hopefully I might educate Paragon about the benefits of service accommodation.
Brilliant. And so between those different approaches, models, do you which is your favorite? Which is the one, if you could get to choose or influence the landlord or the owner, which one's best for you, best for your business? If people listening today are thinking, okay, what's the sort of higher up? What's the preferred way of doing it?
I think JVing with a landlord is a good one. That's the one that generates the biggest returns. If you can find landlords that are willing to do it, if
50-50, they throw in the property. You don't have any risk to guarantee a rent.
Yeah, and if their monthly property costs are quite low, So let's just say their mortgage is only 350, 400 pounds a month, which is, you know, quite possible.
Yeah.
You could be earning £1,000 a month off that property by the time if you joint venture and do 50-50 split on the uplift. They can still take £1,000 out of it. You can take £1,000 out of it.
Yeah, so and you're giving the landlord 1,000 of profit as well on top of their
yeah. Whereas if I was just managing it and taking a management fee, let's just say there was £2,500 worth of bookings, you'd be looking at probably 350 takeout from that, 375, something like that. But actually, by JVing, if I can push it up to £1,000, that's, you know, that's a sizable difference. You don't need to do that across too many properties to give yourself a reasonable income. But I think that the one thing that people do need to remember is that service accommodation is seasonal, but also it's an annual business. You can't just look at the numbers in July and go, this is amazing, we can make loads of money. You've got to look at it across the whole year and go, do you know what? In December and January, it's going to be tight. And I know lots of people have fallen foul of that. You have to remind them that you've got to look at this across the whole 12 months. It's a business. It's not just a get rich quick scheme, unfortunately.
I do think there's that there was a certain amount of the property training industry that was selling July and August numbers as if they were all round and not seasonal highs. Not explicitly saying that, but just making it look like it was.
Yeah, absolutely. We can make £1,000 a month in July and August, not a problem. Yeah. But we're not going to do that in December and January. No. It just doesn't work.
Okay, so that brings us nicely on to you're talking about seasonality. Brings us on to the current situation. So, how has lockdown affected things, and what have you done to make a change or shore things up?
Yeah, so when lockdown happened, we started to see in early March, when COVID started to kick off, we started to see bookings starting to disappear, cancellations coming through, and that was largely down to people's uncertainty about what they could and couldn't do. When lockdown finally happened, the cancellations coming flooding in. The phone wouldn't stop pinging as they came through. So it's kind of like, oh, this isn't good. We had back end of last year, we'd spent a lot of time working with contractors, trying to find contractors, working on sites in Southampton and Portsmouth, building that network of people who we knew were going to be around, largely to get us through the winter. So that worked quite well. As soon as we got to sort of January, February time, and things started to look a bit flaky, and the stuff was starting to happen around the world, we went back to all of those contractors and said, look, what are you doing? How long are you going to be around? We also went to people that we had who'd stayed with us beginning of last year. As an example, the old Ford factory site, we had some guys staying with us who did all the cladding on the new units down there. Back end of last year, Adanac Park started up next to the 271.
Yeah, it
was the same guys, the same main contractor doing that site. We went back to the guys who'd done all the cladding on the previous site and said, look, are you involved in this? Are you coming down? They're like, yeah, we're coming down. We're coming down in March. Brilliant. So we got a lot of those previous contractors back with us. So that's helped us get us through the early period. We also went after the NHS. I'm kind of lucky in that my wife is in the NHS. She's in the system. She understands it. And they were having issues. They were having issues getting accommodation from their primary supplier. So they have a corporate supplier, but they were traditionally booking hotels. Well, the hotels were shut, so they couldn't book anything. Sarah said to knew their head of procurement, said, look, my husband does this, he can help you out. So on the side of that, we talked to the other operators in Southampton and Portsmouth and said, look, if we all go in one by one, saying we've got 5, 10, 1, 7 units, it's just going to get really difficult for them. why don't we work together to try and put together a bigger package? We did that, and then we went to all of the NHS trusts and said, look, we've got access to 180 properties across Southampton and Portsmouth, right? We can help you out. On the assumption that things were going to go really bad, the R rate would stay really high, it was going to get a bit chaotic. So we put lots of things in place with one particular trust, and we've done a few bits and pieces with the others, but we put all those things in place on the assumption that they were really going to need us. Turns out, good for them, bad for us. It didn't get quite as bad as it could have done. So the need for those 180 properties has gradually dropped away. We've still got a few people that have come to us who've needed to isolate, but we were finding properties and putting people in them within half an hour. Because I said to them, I said, look, if you need somebody, just tell me. Phone me up, tell me what you need, I'll find somebody. Because everybody had empty properties at the time. It's a bit difficult to find places in half an hour now, but we had that opportunity to be super responsive, and that's worked really well. So we've now got a really, really good relationship with a couple of the NHS trusts, which post this scenario will hopefully, play out in our favour as well. And then, back into the contractor sites, which sites are still open, where have they got guys coming from? We've had, there's lots of construction teams, Eastern European construction teams still around.
Still busy, yeah.
Yeah, there's the little site the new little site off the avenue. We've got those guys. So yeah, just getting into the sites, getting in there early. So look, we're here, we're still open, we can still help you out. And whenever companies book now, they're coming through Booking.com still, but we then phone them up and speak to them just to make sure they're not trying to book for a party, which seems to be one of the things at the moment. But they all say it's really hard to find accommodation. They're really struggling. So just being their go-to person to help them find accommodation has worked really well. And we've now got people staying with us for certainly the next few weeks, who came off a 3 or 4 night booking a couple of months ago.
So the classic start with Booking.com and then convert to direct.
Yeah, absolutely.
And make sure the huge fee you pay to them, you manage to keep.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, at the beginning of halfway through April, both Airbnb and Booking.com are getting a lot of pressure from government to stop, to help them stop people travelling unnecessarily. So Airbnb said, "Yep, happy days, we'll help you out." So they blocked everybody's calendar. So if you went on Airbnb to look for somewhere to stay in Portsmouth, it would say there was no properties. That's not very helpful for us, because that's, for any operator, that is a marketing channel. So for somebody to just suddenly whip it away from underneath you, that was an interesting move. And then 2 weeks after that, Booking.com did the same. Booking.com is back open. Airbnb is, if you register with them as a key worker. But lots of people, you've got to send documentation, you've got to send evidence, and it's in the all too difficult box. So we've never had lots of bookings through Airbnb, so it didn't affect us too much. But it was just something else that, another spanner in the works, as they say, just to make life extra difficult as we were going forward. But
so it sounds like you've done, you've kind of done lots of focusing in on key opportunities to sort of keep things. That sounds like a lot of NHS work that I know quite a few operators who tried to do what you've done and didn't manage to break through. You did break through, which is fantastic. You're on the cusp of making that really work. Maybe even had contract signed, but actually it didn't come off. You pivoted back to the contractor market, maybe where you were a bit more familiar, and then Booking.com and Airbnb, make that hard too. How occupancy wise, how your occupancy rates for these months compared to say 2019 or expectations?
I'd say we're at about 85% at the moment. Have been for the last few weeks. We've this time last year, trying to think, it was a bit quieter if we're honest. But that might be because we were kind of a bit more laid back and sitting back. We've been very aggressive in chasing the bookings and be very much more proactive. So we've been, my LinkedIn, the amount of time I'm spending on LinkedIn and connecting with people. What do you need? All those companies that are working in the area, connecting into those companies, finding the right person to speak to. So we've been a lot more proactive, and if that's that one of the things that's come out of this process is that we are a lot more proactive about looking for opportunities, looking for people who might be needing space down here, and keeping those bookings going.
That's an initial contact. That's not necessarily after the booking.com to go direct. It's just lots more.
That's just actively looking for those people who we know are big employers in the area, their HR departments, the finance directors. What do you do with all these people you bring to the area? Well, we do this. Well, let's have a conversation. Let's see if we can help you out. Because lots of them do put people in local hotels.
It's really interesting that somebody who's a director or in HR in a company might communicate with someone like you via LinkedIn, not via booking.com. That's really interesting.
Yeah. So we've crafted a specific set of messages to connect with them, and then explain about who we are and what we do. And it's a funnel, isn't it? It's like all of these things, but it talks about COVID-19. It talks about safe spaces. It talks about the fact that we don't have a big communal space. Their staff don't have to interact with anyone. They can get their own clean apartment for the duration of their stay. Nobody's going to interrupt them and all that kind of stuff. So I'm very much of the belief that as this pans out over certainly the next 6 months, those companies who do have people traveling are more likely to book a self-contained apartment than they are a hotel. At the moment, hotel restaurants and bars may or may not be allowed to open when the hotel opens. So you're going to have somebody staying in a hotel who has absolutely no way of feeding themselves, unless they do room service, which they might be allowed to do. But room service gets pretty tedious after a while. Somebody being able to book their own self-contained apartment, we won't disturb them while they're there. If they're going to stay for a couple of weeks, we won't go in and clean over the weekend. They know that. Everybody's happy with that. But it gives them a safe and secure place that they can use for the duration of their stay. And from a corporate responsibility point of view, that's quite an interesting place to be.
You're managing to sell the sort of isolation nature of a self-contained apartment. I suppose for most people at a hotel stay, it's hard to imagine being able to stay at a hotel without interacting with other human beings, without crossing them in the foyer, sitting next to them in the restaurant, talking to staff. Okay, that's interesting.
Yes, actually, if we can offer them something that's safe and meets all the criteria, then that's got to be good for them.
Okay, so one question I had down here, and maybe you've covered it, seeing as your occupancy is a little stronger this time, currently than it was in equivalent months. If you had to choose one positive that you could take out of now, and it could be business, it could be personally related, what would you highlight?
From a business point of view,
coronavirus or the current situation.
So from a business point of view, we've become a lot better at being proactive in terms of chasing bookings and actively looking for people who might need our services. Whereas pre this, we were happy to almost sit back and let the bookings come in.
Now we can't do the heavy lifting, maybe.
Now we're doing a lot of that heavy lift ourselves. And that means we don't pay booking.com fees. We end up with better relationships with people. So, our relationship with our customers has changed a lot in the last 12 months. Definitely for the better.
That sounds like it will bode well for the future.
Yeah, absolutely. But we're also now getting people coming back to us who stayed with us and said, "Oh, John, I'm going to, I don't know, Coventry. Well, I'm sending lads to Coventry for 3 weeks. Do you know anybody up there?" Yeah, actually, we do. So we're now building those relationships with people nationwide, such that we can help them find accommodation, and we'll take a small commission fee from that. But that was always one of the things we wanted to do, was to be the place that people could come to get accommodation anywhere across the UK. There is a big network of people doing service accommodation across the UK. So being able to tap into some of those people is really useful. And then they pass bookings back our way as well. So works.
And you might take a small fee, but more importantly, you'll have a happy client.
Absolutely.
And that's
Absolutely.
yeah, the fee's worth something, but a happy client is worth everything.
Absolutely. We get loads of great messages from people saying, "Oh, that place was amazing. You put us in. It really helped us out. It got us out of a hole." Particularly at the moment where finding accommodation is so hard for people. So being able to help them out and basically take the pressure off. We've had, it's not being sexist. It's the girl in the office who's trying to sort out the accommodation for the lads when they get to a destination. We've spoken to some of them on 2:00 on a Monday. They need somewhere for the lads that afternoon, and they're like, "Oh, I'm glad we found you. It's been really hard. I've been trying to find places all day." So if you phoned me at 9:00, I could have sorted you out quite quickly. But it's that kind of thing. They are telling us they are having trouble finding accommodation. So being able to take that pressure off them is really good.
And then it's not so much about the money. It's about you solving the problem, which is great.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely solving problems is what everybody's all about at the end of the day.
And okay, so next question, and this you can answer this related to your business, service accommodation, or more broadly. Who do you think are the biggest winners and losers out of this current situation?
So from an SA point of view, I think hotels are going to struggle. I think hotels are going to struggle for the next 6 to 12 months in terms of convincing people that they're safe places to stay. I think those people who were operating their businesses at really low margins didn't react quick enough.
Is there a lot of that?
There's a few of those. They're falling by the wayside. I've seen several businesses shut, several SA businesses have folded. People who are London-based. So I think I saw some number the other day. There's been a 30% drop in the number of available apartments in London. Partly because people haven't been able to apply for grants because they've been doing it unofficially in London because you've got things like the 90-day rule.
Yeah.
You can't apply for grants because that flags up they're doing something they shouldn't be doing. So lots of that's disappeared, and hopefully those of us that are left will be the ones doing it properly, running proper businesses, making ticking all the right boxes and abiding by the rules. So the winners out of this will be those that are doing it properly and and survive.
Do you think hotels are going to struggle for a long time?
I think so. I think the general attitude of social distancing, wanting your own space, you can't do that in a hotel. It just doesn't work. You can just about do it in a B&B, and a lot of B&Bs are putting some catering facilities near rooms or in rooms or allowing people access to a kitchen. But it's not like having your own apartment. So yeah, we'll see how the hotels fare. But I'll stick to service departments.
Yes, it's almost like the niche. Well, no, to say, I mean, it's been really. I was going to say it's made for this situation. I know it's been really hard, and lots of operators have gone out of business. But in fact, your major competition is the big hotels, and actually, you have a key differentiator between the two now.
Yeah. And obviously, as we head into the staycation market, we are fully expecting. So July the 4th is a big day, which is when the current plan is when hotels and accommodation, caravan parks and stuff will be allowed to open. At that point, people will very shortly before that, people will start to be thinking about booking their summer holidays because they believe they will be able to travel. So where we are down here, both Southampton and Portsmouth, they are destination places. So we're pretty hopeful that we might get a reasonable summer of bookings. Hopefully some of those will come through as well. So whilst the corporates and the contractors are great, if we can get some families in there for 7 days, prices will be at a premium. That's life, unfortunately. Hopefully we'll get those guys through the door as well.
Interesting. Yes. Okay. So are you saying then kind of contractors are the corporates and the contractors are the sort of bedrock? That's the foundation, and then the cream comes from the holiday makers.
Yeah, certainly at the moment. And I'd say Southampton and Portsmouth are different. So Portsmouth, we get a lot more leisure bookings in Portsmouth, whereas Southampton is more contractors and corporates. And that might just be because of where we are in Portsmouth. We're in Old Portsmouth, we're in Southsea. They're quite nice places. It's a 5-minute walk to the beach. You've got the dockyard. You've got all that kind of stuff. There's a lot more stuff for people to come down on holiday and do in Portsmouth than traditionally you do in Southampton. Yeah. So we've lost, both the Goodwood events, Victorious, the music festival was going to be in Southampton. Various other concerts and stuff that were happening at St Mary's. So loads and loads of events have disappeared. At the moment, I think the boat show is still on.
Know that.
So, yeah. One of my friends is on the organising committee, so I'm getting regular updates. I meant to chase him today, but also lots of events have moved. So they were due to be on, the last few months. They're all now at the end of the year. So those that haven't been cancelled have been moved to later this year. So the back end of this year is going to be really busy.
You're saying the rest of us who were celebrating not having Robbie Williams back to St Mary's, you're in the minority. You're sad he's not coming back.
Yeah. It's amazing how quickly. So when tickets are announced for events like that, within hours, half an hour of tickets going on sale or events being announced, the phone just pings as bookings come through. Because people will book an apartment on the assumption that they're going to, they'll get the tickets for the event. So you've got to be on your ball.
Imagine you've got to be on it, knowing the pricing and the date, the spikes. Yeah.
You've got to be paying attention and get your pricing right. Otherwise, we've missed out on a couple. We weren't quite quick enough, and people have got a premium weekend at a massively discounted price, which is it happens. We could do what some people do and cancel their booking and then put the price out, but we've never done that. That just doesn't seem right to me.
Well, they could sell it back to you, maybe, and then you can.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And then everybody's happy. Okay, I want to shift gears just a little bit. So first question on a slightly different topic. In terms of sort of grants and loans, I think things in the hospitality industry are a little bit different, certainly than we've had for bounce back loans and for the CBIL and those sort of things. What just briefly, what's available? What have you been able to take advantage of?
So where we can have properties either on business rates or council tax. So those that are on business rates, you qualify for the retail and hospitality and leisure grant. That's per property, not per business. So basically, every business rates account number is entitled to a £10,000 grant. So some of ours are on that, so that's quite useful. There's a lot of operators though who operate their properties and their properties are on council tax. We've got a load that are on council tax, partly because we just didn't quite get around to putting them on business rates. Rookie error, you could call it. But we're now going through the process of putting them on business rates. But so there's lots of operators who had no income and were getting got no grant. That included a lot of B&Bs. So there's a lot of B&Bs across the country who are running on council tax. That caused government a few headaches. So that's when the discretionary grant fund came out, which is not technically aimed at us as service department operators. But I do know some people who've managed to get grants through that process. Southampton Fund isn't open yet. They keep talking about it. It was supposed to be by the 1st of June. Then when it went to a week commencing the 1st of June, now it says soon. I don't know if Dan's got an update on that. But the Portsmouth one is open. It's a very fixed time window. It's a very small fund. So it was much easier for the government to work out how much money they needed to dish out to the councils for the first fund, because it's basically the number of registered businesses times £10,000. There's your bucket. This one, it's very much a case of, I think it was done on a percentage of that, of that original number, but they've got no idea how many people are going to apply, because it's people with one apartment or two apartments who may or may not have been running it as a business. So it's not necessarily a registered business. It's kind of, they've made an assumption about how much money councils are going to need. So Portsmouth have said, right, we've got less than a 2-week window to apply. Then they've got to assess everybody, and then they'll give out the money. And you may or may not get any, depending on who you are, what you do, and how well you complete the form. So those are the two grant ones, and then obviously you've got the bounce back loans, and stuff like that, which we've taken. We've taken bounce back loans because it's good business sense. Not knowing what the future looks like, we need that as a buffer to make sure that we're okay. But there are a number of people out there who aren't taking any loans, which or don't know they can have a loan, or don't know they can have a grant. But yeah, it's just it's there. Where there's free money, take the free money. Where there's really cheap money, I would say personally, take it. Stick it in the bank. If you don't need it and don't spend it, give it back in 12 months' time.
Well, maybe that's the key thing, isn't it? Understand if it's a grant or a loan, and if it's a loan, you've got to give it back. So yeah, use it as the buffer. That's
and you know, don't have your cake and eat it. You know, have the cake and go and put it in a tin somewhere. You just, don't bunch your way through £50,000 worth of cake, because you've got to pay that 50.
Should we give Dan an opportunity to? Just in case, Dan, did you have anything you wanted to add while we disparage Southampton City Council?
No comment. The discretionary grant has been a bit of a frustration, actually. And this is, so during COVID, there were some emergency powers in local government where councils could receive money from government and spend it at will. Yeah. As COVID has unwound in terms of the emergency powers, now Southampton has a bureaucratic process that if it receives money from government over a certain amount, it has to go before a full meeting to sign it off, which is what the hold-up is. I only found out about that yesterday. And the criteria has been really slow for some reason to understand, you know, who's eligible to apply for this extra money. We've got 2.2 million, and we've got a whole lag over. We got 40 million initially for grant. We haven't given all that out. So we've got 2.2 million extra come for discretionary, which is what I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, Rob, when I said to everybody, get in there, because I had a feeling this would be a bit like this. And we also have the hangover from the 40 million unspent. So anybody that, I can put my email in here, if anybody is in Southampton and they want to be on the list to be contacted when the money goes live, please email me and I will send you the relevant details. It is a little bit like a first come, first served at the moment set up. But the money's there and it's waiting to be spent. And
that's
on the balance,
hangover, Dan, 40 million hangover. But my hangovers are very different to that.
Well, I think the country's got a £350 billion hangover, but
that's for our children and our children's children to pay back.
The one thing I should say about bounce back, John, you're absolutely right. I would encourage lots of people I know, if you up to 50,000 at 2.5% interest and no repayments for the first year, that money could help you grow your company. Obviously, you can't use it as a deposit for a property.
Please don't buy a flip with it. I've seen so many people. I could do a flip with that money. No, that's not what it's for.
If it can help you grow or recapitalise or any of those sort of things, that's what it's there for. But it's worthwhile taking it. Worst case, stick it in the bank for 12 months and pay it back in 12 months' time when
you've lost nothing.
When interest is due. Hopefully that's helpful.
Thank you, Dan. I thought it was important we give you the chance to comment, not just talk about you. Okay, John, that's fascinating on the detail. Thank you. I wanted to shift gears slightly and ask a few different questions. I'm always talking to people about books and podcasts and things. What's your favourite property book?
Apart from Property Magic, which got me into property.
It could be Property Magic, that's fine.
Yeah, I honestly, I don't read many property. I haven't read many property books. Other than that, I've tended to read more business-related books or personal development books and stuff like that. So when I joined the property entrepreneur program, which was after Mastermind, we had a monthly book club of different books to read, and they were everything from The Shoe Dog, which is a story about Nike, through to I remember it now, gone out of my head. The One Thing, which I think we've spoken about before, Rob, or you've mentioned, that's a fantastic book. But yeah, there's lots of stuff out there. Clockwork is a really good book. That's very much focused on making it includes in 10, but making your business run like clockwork. So what can you do in your business to make it such that so that you don't have to be in your business, and it just runs like clockwork without you being there. So that's quite interesting in terms of making you think about all the things you do and how you do them.
So you've answered my next question, being your favourite business book. So in terms of a recommendation, Clockwork would be up there. Yeah,
Clockwork's definitely up there. That's an interesting one. When I was running last year, I was listening to a lot of audiobooks. So I find that much easier than actually sitting down and reading a book for a bit. Only time I really sit down and read books is when I go on holiday and I'm sitting on a beach and I've got nothing else to do. There's always something else to do, whether it's work related or children related or family related. So actually, going for a run for half an hour, listening to an audiobook. I listen to audiobooks all the time in the car. I'm lucky that mine. I'm going through a lot of podcasts at the moment.
My next question.
So they automatically restart every time I get back in the car.
Sorry, what's your number one podcast? What's your favourite?
So right at the moment, I am listening to Rich Roll, who is a guy in the US who has done probably 550, nearly 600 podcast episodes. They're each about 2 hours long, and a complete range of subjects as well. So whether that's exercise or nutrition or just interesting people he's talking to. And they're just scrolling through. I mean, if anybody wants to try them out, I would suggest if you do he does one about Christmas time, which is an amalgamation of other ones he's done through the year, so little snippets of them. So you can listen to 10 sort of short snippets of people he's interviewed throughout the year. That's a good one to see whether you like him, because obviously some people don't get on with different podcasts, but that's a good one. So I'm just working my way through that at the moment. I think I'm up to I must have listened to about 70 or 80 of them now. So I've got quite a few to go, but they're always on really interesting subjects. He had the one I've just listened to. He had the guy who invented Twitter. That was really interesting about some of the challenges they've been through in setting up and running.
Rich Roll, I know the name. I've just googled him. He wrote the book Finding Ultra.
Yes,
which is where I first came across him. 10 years ago.
And he's some of his interviews have been with what I would say were completely bonkers ultra runners. People that have race across America, which is crazy. And
plant-based. He's one of the first. He was one of the first.
Yeah, and he's a recovering
vegan ultra runners.
Yeah, he's a recovering alcoholic as well. So he's which he doesn't mention very often, but every now and again he kind of drops it into the conversation. But no, fascinating stuff. So yeah, I'm just working my way through that at the moment. And when I finish that, I'll find another podcast. I'll obviously listen to.
Do you do property podcasts?
I probably should do. I mean, Simon Zucci does a property podcast. I don't listen to that. Dan Hill does as well. On Property Entrepreneur. So they're out there. I don't actively do those, but that's partly because every time I pick up my phone, the Rich Roll podcast just plays, and then it just rolls straight onto the next one. So unless I actively stop it and find another one, I'll just end up keep listening to that, I suspect.
The best UK-based one, I would say, Inside Property Investing, Mike Stenhouse, IPI.
Mm-hmm.
Stand out.
Yeah, I've heard Mike speak a few times. He's certainly got some interesting stuff to talk about.
Totally does.
Great. Add that to my list of downloads.
Okay, we've just hit the hour mark, so I'm conscious of people's time. Before I ask you the classic question about how people can find out more about you, is there anything else that you think it's worth sharing, or you particularly wanted to talk about on any subject? Frankly, could be SA, but could be totally unrelated if you wish.
Nothing in particular. I guess we've covered lots about SA already. Obviously, I'm a co-host of Southampton Pin meeting, so more than happy to see people come along to that. We are up until now. We've had collective pin meetings. So when it went online, all of the first Tuesday meetings were on the same. We're combined into one online meeting. We're now going back to individual meetings, so that's great. So
Yeah.
from the first Tuesday of July, it will be a Zoom meeting, and I'm just going to shut that door. Hang on.
Yeah, John and Nigel, first Tuesday of the month.
First Tuesday of the month, yeah. If you use the code John W, JONW, if you've not been before, you can come for free. Yeah, it'd be good to have people on there. If I could remember off the top of my head, I'd tell you who the speakers were, but I can't remember who they are. I'll put them in the comments later.
We don't have a meeting then, so we deliberately say we don't clash with our friends, John and Nigel.
Thanks for that.
Okay, so that's your pin meeting, which is a great meeting. I've been going to that local meeting for years and years and years, which is awesome. What about outside of the pin meeting? Plug your business. How can people get in touch with you if they have follow-up questions?
You can look up the Accommodation Company on Facebook or on Google. We're around and about.
Accommodation Company, great.
The Accommodation Company. It was a really catchy title on the basis that if somebody wanted accommodation, who would they phone? Well, they phone the Accommodation Company, wouldn't they?
That's exactly
it does exactly what it says on the tin. No more complicated than that. Find us on Facebook. You can find me on Facebook. You can email me, so info@theaccommodationcompany.com. My phone number is all over the internet for various reasons. You can get hold of me. And if you just want to have a chat about, what you're doing in SA, other property strategies, obviously through PIN, pretty well connected to people right across the country. So if you want to invest in particular areas, I can probably find you somebody within the PIN network who's doing something somewhere. The PIN network is very much about sharing and helping out as well. So, if you want some help and advice, that those people are out there. So, get in touch, drop us a line. If you want to do a virtual coffee, or at some point, if you want to get together and do an actual coffee face to face or 2 meters away from each other, more than happy to do that. I don't mind helping people out, getting themselves off the ground and get themselves started. I try and keep my ear to the ground about what's happening in the world of SA and various other property stuff. So, I'm happy to share that knowledge as we go forwards.
Thank you very much, John. Really insightful about a part of the property world that I haven't really come across very much. Hear lots of people talk about it. Lots of people trying to sell courses, but it's nice to hear the real deal.
I keep seeing your apartments you're trying to sell and go, they look really nice as SA apartments. If you were going to keep them.
It's funny. I used to have lots of people approach me almost on a weekly basis about that, but strangely over the last few months that hasn't happened very much.
Nobody, yeah.
So great. Thank you very much, John. That's really insightful. And thank you also to Karen Murray, who has the Smart Business Podcast. Dan Fitzhenry, who I think put his email address in the group chat as well. His councillor email address. Dan, do you want to say any final words?
Thank you, Rob. I think just to everybody, get out there, do your stuff, keep positive, keep talking to people, find some people to help you, and don't give up.
Great. Thank you, Dan. Yeah, John's just put his email address if you want to talk to John about serviced accommodation, about anything property related. My podcast recommendation alongside Karen's was a business sort of interview podcast called How I Built This, which is a really professional podcast produced out of the US. Really interesting if you like biographies and all business biographies and business autobiographies. Thank you very much for joining us for the property meetup. We'll be in touch very soon about the next meeting. At the moment, we're managing to run 3 weeks out of 4, so pretty much every Tuesday evening, apart from clashing with friendly local events. We would love to see you again for the next one. Thank you very much for joining. The recording of tonight, if you want to go back and look over any of it, will come out to you on email, so watch out for that. Please check your junk mail if you're looking for it. I normally post it on the Property Meetup group on Facebook as well. So join the group, follow the page, and we will keep you up to date with speakers and events coming soon. And I hope that come July, we might actually be able to have an in-person meeting. It may be a little bit soon, but I'm certainly hoping we'll be able to get an in-person meeting. And my final point, I've just got my children into the Rich Dad Poor Dad game, Cash Flow. I think it's a phenomenal way for people to learn. Turning back to adults playing it, if anybody is interested in playing the game, it's very expensive to buy. If you'd like to try it out, I'd be very happy to host a small group of people. We can't have more than 4 or 5 players because we're not allowed. So if people are interested in doing that, just get in touch with me and I will gather names and dates together and see if we can get a group of people. It would have to be Southampton or certainly reasonably close to Southampton, but I can find a venue and bring the game along, and I'd be happy to host a little entrepreneurial fun of an evening or maybe a daytime sometime. So just get in touch with me. I'm sure you know how to do that. Great, thank you very much. Have a good evening. We'll get the link to the recording out to you soon.
Cheers, Rob.
Bye.